I am recording in 2 places now.
Oh, I did. My backup recorder should be right.
Don't forget the backup recorder.
I can't tell if you're serious or not about the backup recorder. Are you serious about the backup recorder?
I would just wish you recorded in 2 pieces of software instead. That's all I want.
I don't think that's possible to do. You can't do that. And besides, you want things physically separated. Right? If it's one computer, it's no good. It's like you've got, you need 2 things physically recording.
Mm-hmm.
You need 2. God damn it.
Oh my God, what are you doing? For something that you consider to be so important, which is the backup recorder, why have you seemingly buried it like under multiple boxes?
That's a good question. Well, okay. So the thing is, I'm recording from my new office, Myke.
Oh.
My home office is blue now.
Oh, new is blue.
Blue is new, right? And I'm mentally considering it to be my new office.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's been great. But I've also, as part of the process of painting it, everything came out of the office and went into the main room of our house, which made things quite cozy for the several days it took to paint.
I'm sure you were very aware of all the things that you've purchased.
I became very aware of all the things that I've purchased.
Yeah.
I got rid of a whole bunch of them because, again, I had collapsed 2 offices down into one when I moved out of my old one. I was like, there's a bunch of redundant stuff that I got rid of. And I've just like re-put everything back into the new blue office. And I haven't quite figured out what the storage system is going to be. But look, basically, there's been a ton of change here at what I'm thinking of as like the blue engine of Spaceship U.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I love it. I'm so happy about it. And it really is the case. Like the way you arrange your physical environment matters so much. And we can talk about this stuff like later. But the short answer to your question is I've spent the last 2 weeks completely redoing 2 desks. Like I got another big desk for this office, and like I've set up all of that stuff. And to get my office back into a workable state, I just kind of threw a bunch of the stuff that was in my main room into boxes. And I was like, you are my project for later boxes. Like I'll have to organize you and figure all that stuff out and like get a much better storage system for the various things that I have. But what that means is it just occurred to me, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that audio recorder is in the box that's behind me. And then I took a look and I go, oh no, it's not in this box. I mean, there's only 6 boxes of things, but they're very dense. So we might be, doing a trapeze show here without 2 nets underneath us, just 1 net underneath us.
Did you pick blue because of Spaceship U?
No, Myke, it's the other way around. It's blue in Spaceship U because that's the color for years and years I've always color coded as important work.
But did you pick the blue for the office because of that is what I mean.
I don't even understand what you're asking. Blue is the color of serious work.
Yeah, but your office wasn't blue before.
No, I know it wasn't blue before because I just hadn't painted it before.
But if you had painted it, it always would be blue is what I'm asking.
Yeah, of course it would. Like it couldn't be any other. It couldn't be any other color. It's like
obvious.
It's like, look, Myke, if I had like a dedicated recreation room in the house, it would be green because green is the color of like, oh, I'm relaxing now. I'm reading a book here.
Yeah,
that's just the way the colors would be. You wouldn't make a relaxing room blue. That's madness.
Stupid.
A relaxing room has to be green.
Okay.
Like, what are you even asking me?
Yeah. Silly me.
So anyway, I don't have a backup recorder. Just a quick thing, just a quick point of order. Something I'd like to bring to the attention of the court.
Oh dear. Wait, the cortex?
No, don't you dare. I just want like the court stenographer to take it down that I got a lot of flack last time for, Gray made a schedule, and then he moved the very first incidents of this.
Here we
as
go.
Myke said, we
go.
didn't even get to one.
Here we go.
We didn't even get to one as like tears rolled down your cheeks into your beard. And it's like, yes. Okay, well then guess what? We didn't get to one again, but it wasn't me this time. It was you this time. You moved Cortex, right? So I just wanted that like officially on the record. Oh, our second scheduled time, which would have been the first scheduled time. I did not move it. You moved it.
All right, when was we scheduled for? The 10th, right?
I don't know.
All right, we were scheduled for 2 days from
the
now,
day.
I think, and I've moved it 2 days earlier.
Yes,
I did
2
do
days
that.
earlier.
No, but you see, the thing is, though, Gray, it's not the same, right?
What do you mean it's not the same?
You can't turn it around on me and be like,
Of course I
moved
can.
it. No, because
I can completely turn it around
it doesn't.
on you. I'm doing that right now.
I never set the schedule. You set the schedule, so you broke the schedule. You set the schedule and I moved it. That doesn't matter. It's not my schedule. It's yours. Right?
Don't give me this schedule. You wanted a schedule for years.
Yeah, and you wouldn't give it to me.
I gave you a schedule,
you
and this
gave
is what the sentence means, right?
thank
Like
you.
I gave it to you, wrapped up in a little bow, and I said, "Here, Myke.
All right.
Here is the thing that you have asked and wanted for years, and you were so happy." And and now
you are only
moved
making
it.
this situation worse for yourself when you move next month. Now you're making it a big thing, right? Like you are now making it a thing that I moved it. So now when you move it, it becomes even bigger. We're basically going to spend every episode for the next year having this back and forth conversation.
Yeah, well, no, but look. I mean, Myke, I know what you're trying to say here, but let's get real. Neither of us is really expecting that I'm going to be the one who really sticks to the schedule, right? Like, we both know that's not really going to happen. So no one's surprised when Gray moves the schedule. It just is pretty shocking that Myke moved the schedule.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
You just, this thing that I gave you, it was just immediately treated very poorly.
I'm not a very good recipient of gifts, that's true.
Yes, and for a little bit of behind the scenes, we almost had to move it just as we were recording now because of some stuff that came up, and it was like, uh-oh. So we almost got like a double move.
Yeah, something we've never done before is rearrange after we've begun, but we ended up pulling the parachute on that one. We didn't do it.
So anyway, thank you, the court, for hearing that, and thank you to the stenographer for getting that down on the record. It was very important before we begin to have that done.
Yeah. All right, this September, you can join Relay FM in support of St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and so we turn our support to St. Jude during that period of time. Childhood cancer remains the leading cause of death by disease for children under the age of 15, and children that are undergoing treatment for cancer and other life-threatening diseases need transfusions, physical and cognitive therapy, and so much more. But the families of St. Jude patients do not pay a dime for this world-class care, which is an important thing, especially in America, right? And St. Jude cover the costs for those families. Because if you are in that situation and your child has been diagnosed with cancer, what you don't want to have to be thinking about is how can I pay for this? But as well as being this incredible hospital for children, St. Jude is also a world-class research institution. St. Jude combines the very best in personalized care with one of the most technologically advanced treatment clinics in the world. It's called the Red Frog Therapy Center. This is the very first proton therapy center dedicated solely to children with cancer. It has the ability to kill and shrink tumors while keeping healthy tissues and organs safe. And St. Jude continues to research the use of proton therapy, preventing the growth and spread of tumors while reducing the risk of treatment-related side effects. And what's so great about St. Jude is because they are a research institution and because they are funded by donations, they give their research away. They don't sell it. They don't keep it for the highest bidder. They share their research with institutions all over the world. You can donate today at stjude.org/relay, and you will be joining the fight to end childhood cancer. Once again, that is stjude.org/relay. Please go there today and donate for this incredible cause. If you wonder or are wondering, why does Relay FM support St. Jude? Like, St. Jude is a hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, this is incredibly personal to us and to me, because my co-founder, Stephen, his son Josiah has been a patient at St. Jude since he was a very young baby. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and the care and support that St. Jude gave to him allowed him to live today. Without St. Jude, things could have gone very differently. And I consider Stephen's family like an extension of my own family. And to have seen, and I have visited St. Jude multiple times and seen firsthand what an incredible place this is. And the more we have worked with them over the years, the more I am convinced of the fact that this is a place that deserves donations. And we will continue to keep doing it. We're trying to raise $314,000. So we're doing it again, what we raised last year. I have been absolutely blown away so far by the support of the Relay FM community. We have raised just an incredible amount of money so far, but we need your help to get us to that goal. So please go to stjude.org/relay.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the Cortexans who help support St. Jude. So once again, that's stjude.org/relay.
Podcast-a-thon 2, baby. It's happening. It's happening real soon. Very, very soon.
Are you very, very prepared for Podcast-a-thon 2?
By the time people hear this, I will be more prepared than I currently am. But we'll be in the midst of preparing a lot more.
What a true answer that is. In the future, it will be closer to Podcast-a-thon 2 than it is now.
I will talk in a little later on in the episode. I will talk about why I am about a week behind the preparations that I wanted to be at. But we're getting things set up. So the Podcast-a-thon is going to be a 6-hour live stream that we're doing on Twitch at twitch.tv/relayfm on September the 18th from 2 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you should come and hang out. We've got a lot of fun things planned, a lot of weird challenges, a lot of great guests from Relay FM shows are going to be coming on, and we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff. But getting everything set up is it's becoming quite a task. I think I mentioned on our last episode that I have 3 areas in Mega Studio that I'm making, right? So I spoke about having my lounge area, which is fully done now. I've been doing some streams and stuff from there. I have kind of a desk area, which is partly set up. And then I had a third area that I wasn't talking about, but I will now talk about. It is a gazebo full of balloons, or at least it will be. So,
okay.
So this goes back to last year. At the St. Jude campus, they have these filming facilities. And they have 2 studios, and we used the large studio, and then there was a small studio, which we maybe would have been able to use. And I don't know how it came up, but I was very excited about the possibility of every time somebody donated an amount of money, we inflate a balloon and put it in this room. So it would show donations during the podcast-a-thon, right? You would see the balloons filling this room.
Right.
And I was very excited about the prospect of being in that room and like talking, right? Like presenting from the balloon room. I was very excited about this. But it ended up being outside of our scope last year. And what we did instead was we created a ball pit that we had. So every time somebody donated money, they got their name written on a ball and it got thrown in the ball pit. And there are many times during the podcast-a-thon where I was standing in the ball pit and recording from the ball pit. So I always, for Podcast-a-thon 2, wanted to do the balloon room, right? I was fixed on the balloon room. And we were going to do the balloon room. But then we couldn't be in Memphis. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own balloon room. So inside of Mega Studio, we are going to be erecting a gazebo. Is there a different word for gazebo in America? Is that like, do people know what that means? I don't know if this is a British term or not. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, okay. I think I know what you're talking about because I'm hearkening back to my time at the craft fairs, and I'm assuming that you're talking about one of these kind of setups where you have like a booth. And I think I know what you're talking about, but now you are suddenly making me doubt. Like, do you mean a gazebo like you would find out on a lawn, like the kind of thing that people get married in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but like a small one of those.
Oh, okay. That's not at all what I had in my head when you were talking about. So you mean, how do the balloons stay in?
We have netting around it. So I was able to find a gazebo that had netted walls.
Okay.
So the balloons won't escape and you'll still be able to see in.
Right. The balloons won't escape and you won't escape. You'll just be in.
No, I'll just keep walking in and out.
Okay.
I mean, again, like as of right now, the gazebo is not up. It will be.
Okay. I was like, do you have a picture of this thing? But you don't have a picture of this thing because you haven't built it.
Well, I can show you what it will look like.
Okay. Yeah. I would like a photo here because I'm just, look, Myke, human communication is very hard. And suddenly I'm just filled with doubts that I have anything in my head like what you're actually doing.
Okay, I just sent you a link to what I have procured.
Okay, let's see what this gazebo looks like.
They call it a pop-up marquee.
Oh, okay. Well, now that makes me think I'm thinking of the original thing that I was thinking of.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Right?
This is okay. Yes. All right.
You understand what I'm doing?
Okay. Yes, I understand what you're doing. Now, the thing is, this is much closer to what I was imagining, like, say, a young boy would sell pretzels out of with his father. Like, this is much closer to that than when you were like, no, it's like a gazebo that people get married in. And then I was thinking of like a wooden thing in a park, and I just didn't know what was going on here.
Yeah,
so,
no, that was the wrong one. But like, but now you say that like the wooden ones, yeah, but people also get married in marquees, right? Which is kind of close to, but bigger ones. Anyway, this is what I'm erecting in the studio, inside of my studio.
Okay.
And we'll be filling with balloons, with the idea that as we raise money during the podcast-a-thon, the balloon room will get more full.
I like it.
And I will be able to be inside the big full balloon room. Obviously, to do this requires the pre-filling of many, many hundreds of balloons, right?
You're not going to fill them live on air?
Some, for sure.
Okay.
But not all, because otherwise the sound of balloons being inflated will be the entire 6 hours, right? So we're going to fill up many hundreds of balloons in advance, me and Adina, here in Mega Studio, put them in nets, put them behind the gazebo, and slowly fill up the gazebo.
Are you filling them with helium? Like they're going to float balloons?
I thought about helium, but there was a couple of things with helium. One...
Yeah.
The ceilings of Mega Studio were very high, right? And I don't want to be dealing with that. And two, helium balloons will go to the top, which won't have the visual effect of filling.
Right.
Right? It will go the other way.
Yeah, it'll more be like helium balloons are crushing you from above.
Right.
I wasn't planning to say anything, but I was also just wondering, what is the, like, those gazebos, as you call them, they're not that heavy, and I was just beginning to wonder, like, what's the maximum thrust of all of these balloons? And I was just going to keep real quiet if the answer to that was yes.
That would have been actually quite a fun thing to have occurred, right? But like how many balloons until the gazebo leaves the ground would have been quite a fun moment. But no, we're going to be doing air in that. So yeah, that's the big thing that I've been keeping under my hat. I mean, so here's the thing: like when I'm releasing this episode, because of things I will get to later in this episode, we have not had the ability to start the setup of this. So like I'm putting it all on the line here, Gray.
Has the gazebo been delivered? Like, is it in Mega
I
Studio?
have it all. I have everything. I have many hundreds of balloons. I have an inflating machine. I have the gazebo, the nets, and the whole 9 yards.
Okay, great. Then you're set. What could go wrong?
I know what could go wrong. It feels like everything. I have everything. How could anything go wrong? So we've put up the metal part and taken it down again, so we know it fits because it's massive. Because funnily enough, gazebos difficult to buy during COVID.
Why?
They're out of stock everywhere because people are putting them up in their gardens.
I was like, people shouldn't be outside. What are they doing?
But they're in their gardens, right?
Right. They're making little rooms for themselves in their gardens, right?
So it ended up being a thing that was trickier to procure than I had expected.
What are you going to do with it long term?
Don't know, man. I haven't thought that far out yet.
Okay, so when it is up, what percent of the floor space of Mega Studio would you say it's taking up?
Good 25%.
So it's probably not something you'd want to leave up indefinitely.
Oh, it's coming down again, for sure. Okay. But when it's down, it's very small, actually.
I was just thinking, like, maybe this could be a fun, like, VR room for you. You can have, like, the gazebo is now the VR cave. But if it's 25% of Mega Studio, you probably don't want to do that.
That is a fun idea, but it's far too big to be a permanent fixture. But yeah, I will keep it because, like, you never know when you need a balloon room, I guess. But it also, when it's down, it's not that large at all.
Yes.
It's like a pretty small box that goes inside.
Well, that would be delightful.
It's one of the many, many fun things that we have planned for Podcast-a-thon 2, but is part of the very, very large job for a 2-person team to put together. But if you're going to do it, go for it. And that's what we're doing, right? We're just going for it. And we see what happens, and we're going to have fun along the way, and this week is going to be wild.
I would like the time tracking numbers for filling balloons. Like I'd love to see what % of the year that ends up being later on. That would be great.
I'll let you know. It's going to be a combined number. It's not just me, thankfully, filling these things.
Yes, you, Myke, you are a very, very busy boy this upcoming week, and I do not envy you. I do not envy you at all.
This episode of Cortex is brought to you by Squarespace. You can make your next move with Squarespace because they will let you create the website to give your next idea the perfect home. They have all of the tools that you will need to build the website that you want, to show off your next project, to show off your next idea, or maybe even an event that you've got going on. Whether you want to create an online store, a portfolio, or a blog, it doesn't matter because Squarespace has all of the tools that you're going to need. It is an all-in-one platform. There's nothing to install, nothing to patch, no upgrades needed. They take care of all of that stuff so you don't have to. Squarespace have got you covered. I really love Squarespace apps for iOS, so their iPad app is fantastic. You can build and customize your website in the app. They also have an analytics app as well with great alerts and great information to show you when you've got some good traffic stuff to be taken care of and to be looking at on your website. I really love those features. They have award-winning 24/7 customer support at Squarespace, so if you need any help, they've got people there to help you. And as I mentioned, you can very quickly and easily grab a unique domain name to give your website the name that it deserves. Go right now and check out Squarespace for yourself. Go to squarespace.com/Cortex and you can sign up for a free trial with no credit card required. And then when you want to sign up for a plan, just use the code Cortex and you will get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain and show your support for this show. That is squarespace.com/Cortex and the code Cortex for 10% off your first purchase. Well, thanks to Squarespace for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. Squarespace. Make your next move, make your next website. So I've been doing a lot of Twitch streaming in the lead up to the Podcast-a-thon. So like we've been doing some additional streams, games and some in-person kind of stuff too. And I am reminded how much I enjoy streaming as an activity.
What do you like about it?
I like that there's so much additional stuff that you can do that you can't do with audio, right? Like it's video. It's the video thing, right? Like, you know, I can play games. I can show things. Like I've been doing some show and tell of my growing keyboard collection.
Oh, the keyboard collection.
Yeah. We'll come back to that.
So many keyboards.
It's a collection now. It's a thing. It's a big thing in my life at the moment. But so like I'm enjoying that, and what I like about Twitch streaming specifically is it doesn't have the overhead of post video, right? Like there's no editing. It has many of the things that I enjoy about video as a medium, without me having to think about putting in the many hours of work of the editing and publishing that YouTube does, right?
Is that just because of the expectations of the platform, or is that a side effect of Twitch ditches your streams after I don't know what it is? What is it, like a month or something? All the streams go away.
I can host them on a YouTube channel, and I'm planning on doing that for some stuff. But it's just the fact that like all there is from a production perspective is what's happened live. And then that's the end. That's the video, right? So like, there's nothing more to do after that period of time, really. Like, there is no edit to do for me with what I'm doing, because it's not like the vlogs or it's not like product review videos where like you do all the filming and then you start all the editing.
Right.
With a Twitch stream, it's just like, this is what I produced. And you can choose to have been there when it was happening, or you can choose to watch it after the fact, and that's all it is. And I think I kind of like that, and I'm thinking about maybe now I have room and space and stuff like that here in the studio, like trying to make a more permanent setup for that is definitely something that I'm going to consider. Like I'd always spoken about having like video ambitions here, because I will be able to set stuff up and have it be more permanent. But I think now that I will probably be turning my attention more towards streaming than producing. So basically more towards Twitch than YouTube.
It's just the casualness of it. That's what you like?
I like the casualness of the actual video itself, right? Like the making of it. Like I like the interaction method of streaming, like talking to people that are in the chat room, like in the live chat and stuff like that. I enjoy that. I find it to be quite chill, actually. Like as a way of producing content, it is much more relaxed for me than other types of stuff that I make. Like the expectations are different.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that quite relaxing as a content production thing. And I also just like that it's, you sit down, you do the thing, you get up and you're done. There's no more. All that's there is what you did. What you put into it when you were live is all that exists. And I kind of find that quite refreshing because that's not like the other content that I make.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I've had this, I keep asking because I've had this like on and off again, like, what is live streaming? Like, I don't know. I never feel like I'm able to get into it. Like I've never found content creators that have been like, oh, I really enjoy watching a bunch of this live stuff.
See, I have also been watching way more Twitch streams.
Okay.
So like that's part of it. Is like I've found a type of content that I like to watch, which is people building keyboards.
No, okay.
Right? Hanging out and building keyboards. And I've been enjoying that content. I find it very relaxing to watch. So like it's content that I am watching like semi-actively, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can get that. Like the most recent live thing I did watch was I did watch Steven put the wheels on his Mac Pro. Like
you see stuff like that. So like he mentioned on that stream an idea that I am saying that I really want him to do. So I'm now going to say it on this show as a way to push him further. So there was a show called This Old House in America, right? I think it was called. It was like a home renovation show or something. And he referenced like this old Mac, where like maybe every Sunday he could take apart an old Mac and show you the insides. And I just thought like, yeah, man, like I would love that, right? Because I think I have come to enjoy this like calm, comforting type of content that the in-person Twitch streaming can be. Right? And I think like a lot of the time on Twitch it's called like just chatting or whatever, but I'd like there to be a thing that's going on as well as the interaction. So like with the keyboard streamers that I watch, they're doing something and also having conversations with the people that are there in the Twitch chat, right? So I like the mixture of that, which is like the calm conversation. A lot of them as well have like beds of calming music through the streams, which I also really like the lo-fi hip-hop type stuff.
Yes. No. I feel like your watchword for this one is calm, right? Myke, like you've said it so many, like Myke wants something that's calm. And I was just trying to think of like the few things that I've seen that's live and I'm trying to like bring some stuff up in my mind that's similar to this. But a friend of mine, I did get into it for a little bit, but not permanently. A friend of mine showed me these, I don't know how to describe it, like these crazy Mario Maker levels, like the world's most insanely difficult levels of Mario that you have ever seen. And it's for someone who was totally unfamiliar with Mario Maker. It was very like, what is this madness?
Yeah, it's a wild game. I never really got into it, but I can see why people like it.
Yeah. But anyway, so the thing about those streams is like, yes, the person who's playing this incredibly hard level is casually chatting with the audience about whatever, but I would not describe it as calm because in the background they're pulling off just these totally insane maneuvers, and all I could think of is how can you possibly have a conversation with anyone while you're also doing these unbelievably god tier level moves in the background?
Well, that's because to them it's like it's flow, right?
Yes, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, but I don't think it wasn't like a calming viewing experience, right?
Right.
Whereas watching Steven put the wheels on his Mac Pro, I don't know. I watched it, but I also felt like, oh, this is like a weird art project that he's doing over here, and it was a much more relaxing experience.
So that's kind of like where I am with this, right? Where like I am in. It's like, you know, I feel like it's a common thing for me where if I find a type of content that I enjoy consuming, I like to see if I can do it.
Yeah.
right? This is a trait of me that I have come to realize about myself maybe in the last year, where like I've started to think like, why do I try lots of things, right? And see what works and see what I like and what doesn't like. And it's very frequent that like I will come across a style of content. I will consider, can I try that? I like consuming it. Would I like making it? And I try, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And I've kind of always been this way, but I've kind of become self-aware about this of myself maybe in the last year or so. So it's like similar where like I have enjoyed watching this type of content. It is about a thing that I am becoming increasingly interested in. And so maybe I will try doing some of it myself. And I've been doing a couple of streams in this vein during September, because as we've been hitting different fundraising amounts through the campaign, we've been doing content, and Steven's wheel thing was one of those, where he basically changed the feet out of his Mac Pro to the really expensive wheels.
Right.
And I really enjoyed watching Steven do that in a similar vein, where it was really chill. And I think I like that kind of, I have come to enjoy that kind of content. And so I'm also thinking like, are there things that I can do in that space? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's also a very natural part of the creative process that it doesn't matter what it is. Like if it's live streaming, you watch a bunch of different content creators making live stream stuff, and then you start to develop like preferences or like genre sensitivities where you think, oh, I like it when people do this, or I don't like it when people do that. And then like I think it can very naturally just lead you into thinking, oh, if I was going to do a version of this, how would I do it? And yeah, I think that can just naturally happen for any kind of entertainment. Like, yeah, I mean, I know when I made that Tikoi video, I watched like 1 billion urban exploration videos around that time, where I'm just like, what's this genre like? When I'm putting this together, what do people do that I like, and what do people do that I don't like? And let me try to make my version of this thing. And I think that happens really naturally with any kind of creative project. I mean, the flip side of that is it's sort of cliche, but it is true, where you sometimes run into people where they're like, oh, I'm working on a novel or whatever. And you're like, do you read a lot of fiction? You go, no, I don't read a lot of fiction, but I'm writing this novel. It's like, oh no, that project is doomed.
I think it's pretty normal in for people that are creative, right? That like, you look at something and when you start to like it, you can't help but think like, can I do that too? And how would I do that if I was going to do that? And like it ends up becoming a thing. And I think certain people will not make it, but I almost can't help myself but to always want to try.
Yeah, and I can see Chill Live with Myke as a future project for sure. Like it sounds very up your alley.
It fits for me. Basically, I want to get to a point where I learn and I'm learning to like build my own keyboards, right? Like you buy the kits and you put them together, and I kind of figure if I'm going to want to learn that anyway, I may as well just do this stuff on live streams, right? Like it just...
okay. So you want to live stream the process. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's something I'm thinking about. And I'm kind of just I'm just noodling on it a little bit.
Like you're going to learn soldering? Is that one of the things you're going to do? Soldering is fun.
I've never done it. It feels like one of those things where it's kind of missing from my geekdom to have done anything with electronics.
Right, your geek resume, right?
Yeah.
That you want to put soldering on there. Yeah,
I want to get the badge, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It's like the merit badge. You can prove like able to poorly solder two things together. Great, tick, got it done.
They didn't fall apart immediately.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I've never really done anything like that. This feels like a low stakes thing to try, you know. So yeah, I just want to give it a go. And basically, it all comes back to that tweet that was sent into this show. The Ask Cortex question that we had, it was like which started this whole journey. It was from someone called Noit, and they sent this back in 2019, but we read it on a show much later, basically saying, if either of you have ever used mechanical keyboards, have you ever been tempted further down the rabbit hole of fancier keyboards? I can see Mike's love of pens transporting to this.
Right.
And they were right. Like, and this kind of interest, this kind of hobby, I think it intersects with a lot of things that I like, because it also is technology, as well as being collecting and customization and stuff like that. So why not turn it into some kind of content? But what I don't want to do is make a podcast. Like I don't want to do that. I have no interest in that.
Yeah, and it's something like Myke learns to build a keyboard is poor podcast content, but it's just not suited for it.
Right, no, but I could and make a version of the Pen Addict, but with keyboards. Not Myke learning, but like Myke being interested in this hobby, finding someone more knowledgeable than him to help teach him and the audience if they're interested, and then over time my knowledge builds, and then it becomes talking about what new products exist in the world, right? Like there is definitely the Pen Addict model would fit for keyboards easy, but I don't want to do that. Just because as I think I've said this before on the show of like when I was talking about having hobbies, and this is definitely a hobby, is like not turning it into work. And the streaming stuff,
hard to do,
right? But exactly, but the streaming stuff is like, I don't really think of that as, at the moment, I'll say this. I mean, who knows? But like, it doesn't.
I was like, oh, Myke, come on. I don't really think of this as work yet.
It's far enough away at the moment from what I do for a living. And if it ended up becoming something that was work-like, that would mean that it was successful. Otherwise, it's just going to maintain to be my hobby. But what I don't feel the same Twitch streaming than I do recording shows. Like it's working different parts of my brain. It's like I really loved recording videos. I hated editing them because editing was too close to the editing that I do for audio. So yeah, pandemic busy, my friend. Pandemic busy.
Yeah, you're gonna add live streamer to your repertoire here, and again, it's like as soon as you start getting, whatever it is, like the Twitch version of YouTube super chats, like Twitch donations, like so then it's going to suddenly become much more work like. But like you said, that just means that it's become a successful project. But it's charming to hear you say that now at the beginning of it, like, oh, this isn't work.
I'm knowing my boundaries though, right?
Yeah.
Well, like I have set the boundary of I'm not starting a podcast about mechanical keyboards. That boundary is set.
Yeah, I think that's the right decision.
And if I want to dabble in other things, I will allow myself to do that. Because as well, it's an expensive hobby. So if I want to do it, trying to make some money from it is a good, that's good for the spreadsheets. Right.
You're going to try to recoup that.
I can try and bring some of that money back into the business a little bit. But it feels like something to play around with in an area which intersects, I think, enough with some of my other hobbies. So I kind of want to tinker with it without integrating it into my current creative work. That's kind of the important part for me, is I want it to be adjacent, not part of what I'm already doing. If I do it.
Yeah, which you totally are going to do.
Well, we'll see. The Podcast-a-thon being over is going to free up quite a lot of time in my schedule again, which I'm excited about. Ooh.
Busy Myke.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at FreshBooks. FreshBooks can help you save time, can help you save hassle with their super simple cloud accounting software. They simplify tasks like invoicing, expense tracking, getting paid online to make sure that you can get your work done. And they have done this for their over 10 million customers, helping them deal with the hassles of getting rid of paperwork from their lives. What I love about FreshBooks is how simple and how easy it is to keep on top of the things that I need. Every time I log in, there's a notification center right there. It's like my personal assistant when it comes to finances. I'll be told everything that's changed in my business since I last logged in and what needs to be dealt with, and this is available to you too. You should sign up for FreshBooks right now because you will also be able to automate late payment email reminders, meaning that you'll be spending less time chasing people, sending those emails saying, hey, did you get that invoice? Did you get that invoice? FreshBooks will tell you that they've received it, will tell you when it's opened, and they can also automate those late payment email reminders so you don't have to be chasing people down. This is one of the things that I really love about FreshBooks. It makes me feel like I'm in control and also keeps me from having to spend so much time dealing with the paperwork, dealing with the invoices that I don't really want to have to focus on. If you're listening to this show and you still haven't used FreshBooks, now's the time to try it. They are giving an unrestricted 30-day free trial for listeners of this show with no credit card needed. All All you have to do is go to freshbooks.com/Cortex and enter Cortex in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That's freshbooks.com/Cortex for a 30-day free trial of FreshBooks. Our thanks to FreshBooks for their support of this show and Relay FM. So the reactions to our last episode were incredibly fun. They fell into two camps. People who were shocked like me that it had never come up that me and you understood note-taking so fundamentally differently. And people that were surprised that they took notes the same way that you did, or thought about notes the same way that you did, and didn't know that the rest of the world thought differently to them.
Yeah. There's a lot of feedback. I don't know. I felt like I was in literal pain listening back to that episode for my pass of the edit, where I was like, oh no, Past Gray is doing such a terrible job explaining anything here. And it's just like, this is what he sounds like when he's in the middle of a project. It seemed like there was definitely an episode that caused a lot of discussion and generated a lot of interesting feedback. But for me, I was mostly like, why do I explain things so poorly when I'm in the middle of them? But,
are you going to take another crack at it?
No, I'm not going to take another crack at it because I'm still in the middle of it, right? Okay. I'm still like, don't rush me, Myke.
Well, I don't know. I don't know where you are in it, right? This is me asking you.
Yeah, I'm still very in the middle of this. I don't know. I think I partly sounded like just a complete weirdo on the last episode, and a lot of the feedback seemed to line up with that. Like, how does he do anything if he's not doing what I think of as notes? Like that was an overwhelming tidal wave of feedback of like, how are you able to accomplish your job at all if you don't take notes?
Well, that feedback also came directly from me to you. I still don't feel like I fully understand how you manage anything, really.
Yeah, and there's still totally a part of me which is like, I don't know about these notes. I don't know about this.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a longer thread for a while.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Again, I'm still very much on the side of just that brains are really different. And I think the feedback itself just totally demonstrated this, that there is a way that some portion of the population does think about notes in the way that I do, which is like, what is this? What is this for? And I think you could see it pop up where it was the same thing where they're like, oh, the other people are really doing something. I just always assumed it was nonsense too, right? And this is what I mean. Just like brains are different and you can find these little divisions, but they're just not, you just don't know where they're going to be or it's not obvious where they're going to pop up. But yeah, I am still very in the middle of this. I'm still sort of working out what the new system will be. So I don't have a lot of specific follow-up like you may have hoped on this topic, but
I wasn't expecting much, being honest.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you'd gotten any further and if you had, how far.
Yeah, so I guess I would say while I don't have a clear direction forward. At this point I have very clearly decided, the past, goodbye. Like I'm just going to dump some kerosene on all of my Evernotes, walk away and throw a match over my shoulder. Whoom! Year 0, we're beginning again, and let's figure out from here what the new glorious future will be. And I've picked intentionally 2 video topics for the next 2 projects that are almost like toy projects that are easy to play around with this topic of, how would notes work? And that's what I'm working on while I'm trying to figure out like what is the new system going forward. Also, especially after the, personally crushing Tikoi incident, like it's useful anyway to pick lighter topics for the next 2 videos instead of some of my original plans, which were like very complicated videos. And it's like, you know what? This is not the time to do that. So I picked a couple of toy topics of like, okay, these are easy to do. I know I won't run into any major problems here. And the first one, stylistically, I'm even doing it so it's very clear that like this is not a 100% serious video. So it's like if there's a minor factual error, like it's fine because this is clearly not supposed to be like an encyclopedia entry on this topic. And so that's sort of what I've done topic wise for what I'm working on. And I also think the freedom and the lightness of topics gives me a lot of room to play around with what the system is or how do the notes work. And because they're smaller topics, I can like just crunch up a bunch of stuff I've worked on and try to format it in a different way and see how that works. So I'm very experimental. I'm very experimental with notes for the time being, and I'm just sort of seeing what's going on and trying to figure out what the future will be. But I guess that's also a little bit of saying for the YouTube audience, maybe it's now a time to be a bit patient on when the next video will be. Like I'm doing a total like once in a decade reboot of the way I work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a choice that you make, right? You can choose that, like, I'm going to make this change before the next video, or you can be like, well, I'm going to keep working the old way and develop the new way. But I can understand from your perspective that, well, the reason this is happening is not because you had a new idea or found a new system that you thought might be fun to play around in. If you've highlighted that you need to look at this as a potential way to help you in the future, then you'd be kind of foolish to not do this beforehand.
I took it very seriously what I said at the end of the CGP Grey was wrong video of like, oh, like we've done this autopsy, and like at the end of that video I say, oh, if we need to change things, we're going to change things. I didn't specify because I just didn't have any idea like what that specifically would mean, but that has very directly translated into like, okay, I need to rethink the way I do primary sources and my notes on primary sources.
Right.
I also just realized I said it in a slightly strange way there, but when I mean like the next video, I think a clearer way to say it is like excluding these couple of toy projects where I'm just experimenting, like the next heavyweight video.
You have some light gray videos, maybe.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Stuff that isn't, maybe it's easier to say, like stuff that in nature is not something that requires heavy research like Tikoi did.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Would you call it Gray Explains in that sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the videos, the toy projects are still like, they're going to get that official logo on the side, which makes them like the official real Gray Explains videos.
Right.
But the topics have just been selected for very limited scope.
That's good. That's clever.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, it's been a good time to like step back and take not a break exactly, but just do a rethink.
You're reevaluating some stuff. Yeah.
That Gray Was Wrong project was extremely taxing on a very short period of time. And I just knew like, okay, this costs a lot of like work points that are going to take a long amount of time to recharge. And so like doing the note stuff is a good thing to be tinkering with, like while I'm building back up to that. And then what I was thinking about is like, oh, okay, well, if I'm burning the past, the future is now totally gone. And all of my vague plans for like, oh, this is the rough outline of the next 6 videos. I was like, forget that, whoosh, in the garbage too. Like, today is a new day. Like from right now, given what you know, like what topics would you select if nothing else mattered? And it's like, oh, okay, there's 2 obvious ones that I can play with, like, and then I'll do a reevaluation of what the rest of the topics are going to be. So that's a little bit of where I am with the redoing of the notes.
Well, I look forward to coming back to it further. I really look forward, actually, to finding out which app you end up landing on. That's the thing that I'm really interested in.
That's all people want to know. People want to know about apps.
Well, of course they do.
They want to know.
Let me rephrase it. People in general probably don't care. Core Texans, they really care. Right?
Yeah, no, Core Texans really care about the apps. Mm-hmm. And also, I get it, right? Like, we all know like, oh, gear is the most exciting. The apps are the most interesting, right? Because they are the physical and digital instantiations of ideas. I do totally get why people care. Oh, what pen did you write that novel with, right? People want to know. I do have some initial thoughts.
Okay.
So there's this phenomenon where once you notice something, you notice it everywhere.
It's the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I couldn't remember the name for it.
It's one of the only things like this I remember because I love bringing it up, and I had to look it up so many times that it's stuck in my brain.
Okay, how do you say it? It's what?
Baader-Meinhof.
Baader-Meinhof. Okay. How would you explain it to the audience then if you've looked it up so many times?
So the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon is you become aware of something and then you see it everywhere in real life. A good example is for people is like you buy a car or someone you know buys a car and then you see that model of car everywhere.
Right. So I'm having, I don't know if it is this phenomenon. I have a suspicion that it's kind of not. But at the same time, I also feel like, oh, the whole world of notes is going through a revolution right now.
No, you have hit it on a very like weird time, right? Where like this might be part of the reason why you've realized that this is the thing that you're not doing like everybody else, because you have started to look at notes at a time when everyone is doing wikis, right? Like,
yeah.
There is a big upending in the way that note applications are looked at. And it is this thing of like the Notion Nation, the Roman rovers, rovers.
No, it was the Roman. I think the one I heard I liked best was the Roman Legion, which feels really obvious in retrospect.
I really like that, but there's a reason because I also heard people say Roman Empire. We didn't come on that because we were going for alliteration of all of them. That's why we never got to any of the Roman ones. But I like Roman Legion. I like Roman Legion
is good.
So Notion Nation is just funny, and we don't have to alliterate everything because Roman Legion is excellent.
Okay, so I feel slightly less crazy with you mentioning this because I have though been feeling like, oh, I'm paying attention to notes, and so suddenly the whole world is paying attention to notes. And it's like, that's not how the world works, but apparently it is.
No,
and it is.
No, it's not.
So
don't take that lesson away from it.
Thank you for confirming that. Like just as I suspected, like
the world revolves around me. Good to know.
And as quantum mechanics tells me, like my pure attention creates the world as it is. Perfect. That's exactly what I thought. So anyway.
Okay.
I have been looking into the notes. There is this idea that's been going around in this discussion of notes that my attention has created, which I think encapsulates a clear idea. And it's this distinction between Evernote, Roam, and Notion, and like what kind of person each of these apps are for. And the idea is Evernote is for librarians, Roam is for gardeners, and Notion is for architects. And I've seen this like all over the place, this concept when people are trying to think about these different note systems. And I do think there's something really good about it, which is why it's an idea that's spreading.
I think the gardener one is the one that's the most confusing to me. The other two, like librarian and architect, I can kind of get around that, but I don't know why Notion is for gardeners.
It's Roam is for gardeners. Notion is for architects.
Okay. Still hasn't helped.
No. Well, but the gardeners one, we'll get to that in a second. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, this makes total sense. And yes, librarians makes perfect sense. Notion is something that's been incorporated into like my workflow purely through my assistant. And it also is like, oh, this of course is this good tool for architecting like a more permanent structure around something like a company, right? And procedures and checklists and how do you do all of this? You know, it's why Notion allows you to throw a database in the middle of your text file. Like it's sort of leans in this direction of you want to build a beautiful cathedral that is complete about this topic. Like that's the way that tool works. So the Roam is for gardeners one. Like the reason this is confusing to you, Myke, is because I think the idea that this is trying to express is the same kind of idea in the Zettelkasten system that I was describing last time. You're not making the outline ahead of time. You don't know specifically what it is that you're building. And unlike a library, you're not trying to file things within a hierarchical Dewey Decimal System. You are having things grow and you're sort of tending to them as they grow. And the idea here is also like it's not like an English garden where everything is like sharply cut lines. It's more like, oh, this is like a wild managed garden and you are the person who's overseeing it. And that's like the idea in the Zettelkasten system. And that's also why it makes sense the way Roam does things. It's like, oh, okay. It is leaning you in this other direction of it's really easy to create notes. It's really easy to link notes to each other. The the focus is like much less on the specific content of any particular note, like Notion does, and it's more about the relationships between them. And I just think like seems to me like a pretty good division in how do people work these three ideas. And even the gardener one being a little bit confusing to me seems like, no, but that makes sense, because if you are this sort of person, it just makes sense to you right away. And I think very clearly like, oh, I got attracted to Zettelkasten in the first place because the ideas that I originally came across related to it. Like, this makes much more sense to me than any of the other two messages. So all of that is to say that Roam is obviously the tool that I should use, but I don't like it. And I don't like it
either,
for reasons that are incredibly hard to pin down. Like, I was trying to think about it before the show of like, I need to be able to put into words like why I don't like Roam. And I can come up with nothing specific that doesn't sound ridiculous. So I'll just say like, this is the way life is sometimes. Sometimes you find yourself a little repelled from something and you just don't know why. And it's okay to go with your gut sometimes.
Let me throw in some of the reasons that I don't like it at the moment, and it might change. One, there's no apps, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested in that. And then because it's just for the web, like, and it's just on the web, it feels like it has absolutely zero personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's nothing. It's like, here's just some white pages and you just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it has a personality of any kind. Maybe that's not important. Probably not important. And I reckon I would maybe feel better about it if there was an app, but like I don't want to use a web page like to put my notes into. I just don't want to do that. You know, it's like one of the reasons I'm turned off of Notion is, right, like it just feels like it's the web, even though it's an app, you know? So like, to be honest, I'm not sure that I would ever really be that interested in trying something like Roam, because even when they build an app, I expect it will just be a web view inside of an application. Especially when it comes to stuff like notes, there's like a security that I feel from it, in that it being like what feels like a native application. It just makes me feel more comfortable to trust my notes to that. That's why I like the Notes app. I like Bear. I don't really use Bear for notes. I use it for like Markdown, for like longer writing. But if I was going to not use the Apple Notes app, Bear is the app I would use.
Yeah,
I mean, and Bear is doing more and more stuff like this, by the way. You might want to look at it, Gray, for like connecting notes together. And they just they've been doing this for a while, where you can link from note to note. But now they've done it where you can link to sections of other notes.
Yeah, I did see that. And again, it's just like, because my attention is turned to this topic now, right? I was like, oh, Bear is doing this thing too.
Right, but now I feel like I am in this too, because like I think I would have previously just ignored that headline, but now I'm like, oh, notes, right? Like, even though I'm not doing what you're doing, but now my brain is tuned to every piece of notes news.
Yeah, and of course we have now done this to the listeners, where I think many of them will have never even like come across a piece of Notes news in forever, and it's like now every scrap of Notes news is going to like be blared into their attention because of this.
Especially anything noteworthy.
I'm glad you're pleased with yourself there, Myke.
Very, so pleased.
I thought scrap was like close enough without being a pun, but no, you gotta go one further.
It wasn't cheesy enough, Gray. Come on. I will turn my attention back to Roam, because I know they're building an app, and that's when I will give it much more of its due. I just know that there's no point in me trying to use it now, because it's just not the tool for me if it's on the web only.
Yeah.
Because I like to write notes anytime I don't want to wait for an internet connection. That is like a very important thing for me. Like, if this does not work offline, I can't trust it as my notes app, because I would want to retrieve and add that information without waiting, without delay, without fail. So I need to know that all of that content is available to me whenever I need it. And a web page is not that, right? Like, if I have something I want to write a note about, I need to write it right now, and it needs to go where it needs to go. That's why I trust Apple Notes, right? Like, it does that for me. The sync-in is fantastic. The notes are always where I need them. You know, like Apple Notes database builds incredibly fast. Like if I have a new machine, it's syncing my hundreds and hundreds of notes, takes a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what I want. I don't want to be going out to the web every time.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel reliable enough for me that way.
Yeah, and like those are good. Those are good reasons. It's just a funny thing. It's like Rome is in this the three big contenders for these kind of knowledge management systems.
Mm-hmm.
Evernote, Rome, and Notion are the big players, and Evernote is the dinosaur on the block, and Rome and Notion are the new kids on the block. But they're very different in the way that they act. And of the three, it's very clear that like Rome is the tool that I should use, but I don't like it, and I cannot specify why. But the flip side of that coin is that there is a tool that I shouldn't like, but I totally love, and that is Obsidian, which is the one I mentioned last time. Like I had been just investigating a little bit, but like boy, oh boy, do I love Obsidian. And it is the reverse. Like I've got a long list of things that I could tell you about why I shouldn't like Obsidian, but they don't matter because I just love it.
While I was editing the episode before, I was looking at the website again and I was listening to your description, and I tell you, Gray, I still do not understand what this application does. Right, I was looking at the images that they put on the website. I was listening to you explain it to me for the second time. Well, I'm going, yeah. And Gray, I don't understand it. I don't know why there's graphs. I don't know where the notes actually are. Like, I do not get it. I am pleased this one is interesting to you, but like...
Oh, it's not interesting. Like I love it, right? But like let me tell you, I've got all these reasons why I shouldn't. It's like, oh, it's an Electron app. I hate Electron apps, but you know what? Whatever. Like the programmers are doing an amazing job of making it feel like it's just a different tool and not a gross Electron app. Looking at you, Slack. Right, so like I don't like that at all. It's a tiny development team. It's like 2 people. It's a brand new project. So like the variance and uncertainty is incredibly high. They don't even have any monetization in place right now. They've got a plan for like how they will monetize the app, but like they don't have it right now. All they have is an option to sign up and just give them some money to support the development, which I 100% did in exchange for nothing. I'm like, please keep building this app. I love it. Oh, it's Mac only, no iOS apps, no iPad apps.
Probably never will be.
I just assume never. Like it's on their they have a little Trello board for what's under development. And like on the farthest end, they're like very long-term, mobile apps. But even there, their like long-term projection is just a lightweight one, something for capture and for access. But they're not even dreaming that they're going to recreate the whole thing on iOS. What an incredible downside. I don't care. I love it. I've been playing around with it, and it's just very obvious that of all of the digital tools, this is the one that just suits my brain the best. And yeah, it's, you can do the kind of Zettelkasten sort of thing. I think probably one of the clearest things I can say that is a function of why do I like it is it's very easy to open up a bunch of little windows. So I'm really trying to recreate this idea of all the notes are sort of index card sized. And if you think that these aren't endless scrolling text documents, these are index card sized pieces of information. Well, you can fit a lot of index cards on an iMac screen, and Obsidian makes it really easy to do that. Like every time you command click on a link in one of your notes, it'll just open up in a new window and like fit it somewhere on the screen. So it's a great way to be able to look at like a bunch of stuff at once. It really is very Linuxy, but in the good way, not in the way that Linux can be terrible. So I would say I really like Obsidian. And for my own total self-interest, anyone who's tried Rome and has felt like, oh, they don't quite like it, give Obsidian a try, because I would like them to get a bigger user base and then to be able to have a monetization plan so that it continues to exist. But yeah, so that is where I have fallen on the digital tool side. Obsidian, the app that I shouldn't love, but I really do. Oh, they also have an 80s theme, which is totally rad.
Okay. This episode of Cortex is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Have you ever watched The Office? If you have, you probably know that the US series is based on a UK series, also called The Office. But what if I told you that there are 9 other countries around the world with their own versions of The Office that you've probably never seen? I bet you didn't even know about them because they're not available in your country. But you can access content available all around the world with no geo restrictions when you use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think that you're located. You can choose from nearly 100 different countries, giving you access to content that isn't usually available in your region. If you like watching shows and movies, ExpressVPN, it's a must-have. For less than $7 a month, ExpressVPN lets you access thousands of new shows and movies. On services that you're already using, like Netflix and Amazon Prime, it is a no-brainer, and it couldn't be easier to use. Just fire up the ExpressVPN app on your computer or TV, select a location, and hit connect. I've done this a bunch of times myself, and what I really love is that things stream super fast. You would never even know that you were using a VPN. That's also, coincidentally, one of my very favorite features about ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is so incredibly fast, it doesn't slow your connection. You can stream content in HD quality with no issues, and I love how easy it is on my iPad and on my Mac. It's a simple app. You just press one button and you're connected. And I love that you can very easily choose the locations. Super simple to use. Absolutely fantastic. So get the most out of your streaming services today at expressvpn.com/cortex. If you go to that URL, you'll get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Once again, that's expressvpn.com/cortex, expressvpn.com/cortex. Go there now to learn more. Thanks to ExpressVPN for their support of this show and Relay FM. You mentioned painting your office blue.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going on in your quarantine?
Well, I mean, I would say this has, without a doubt, been the most boring and uneventful time of my life.
Yep.
But I've also just loved it. Like, I've just loved every minute of it.
Boring doesn't have to be bad. It depends on how you call what you're saying, right? It's boring in the sense that, like, you haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
It's boring in the sense that I painted my office blue is legitimately one of the biggest pieces of news I can present to you in my life, right? So like, what has happened? Like, my office is blue. And this, like, if we're making a list of here's the top 3 most interesting things that have happened to Gray in the past many months, like, that easily makes the top 3 list. That's what I mean by boring.
Right.
I like it. I like boring. And I was just looking at my calendar the other day, and I realized I passed my what I'm thinking of as my 6-month quarantine anniversary. Because I was looking at my calendar, and it occurred to me, I was like, oh, what was the last social event that I did in person? And I realized, yeah, that was more than 6 months ago now, was the last time I socialized with a human being in person. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, it was quite a while ago. But it's been great. So, yeah, very low-key quarantine, but it's nice. I mean, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like your life has no events?
Different events.
Different events. What do you mean by different events?
Well, I mean, I still have things going on, right? Podcast-a-thon is happening, you know?
Right.
Like, we're getting into new phone season. These are things that always happen anyway. Mm. I have had that period of time up until now. Because things that typically happen for me between March and September call for lots of events that are only really occurring in person. But this time of year, kind of September to December, there's a lot of stuff happening for me, which always happen in the way that I'm doing them. So it feels like I'm getting a little bit of normalcy there, right? Like new iPhones, multiple product releases of different, like all that kind of stuff. I always did that at home, right? So like those feel like normal. And also like our quarantine is different in that I have my studio, right? So I'm leaving the house. I'm going to a place every day. I'm here basically every work day now, by the way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's really good.
I have a commute again, which is interesting. I actually like it because it's a bit more activity. I can get work done on the commute, right? Like I'm finding all of the things that can be good about a commute. There are bad things about commutes, sure. Like I have a travel card again. right?
Right.
Like, which is a weird thing. It's
Wow.
been 6 years since I had a travel card. I kind of hate that I have to use the physical Oyster card, that like TFO have not found a way to make a digital Oyster card in my phone, which they could totally do if they wanted to.
Why don't you just use the contactless credit card thing?
Because it's more expensive.
I thought it retroactively gave you the discount after you traveled the time.
Yes, kind of. But also, if you're going to make it a business expense, it's way easier to pay for it in a chunk than for me to be
Right.
saving. Like, because TFL doesn't even generate receipts, right? But I can get a receipt of a travel card.
Yes. Okay. I got it. That makes sense. That is frustrating.
Now I'm like with this friggin' Oyster card in my wallet like a chump. Taking it out every day, beeping
That
it.
also feels like a real relic. I'm trying to think how long it's been since I've had a physical Oyster card. It's like, oh, I was a child who had just arrived in the city.
No, it's for me. It has been 6 years. 6 years since I had an Oyster card. So I'm back on that again. But that's kind of what it is. I have a pretty good 11 to 7 routine. It's pretty standard for me. Like, I don't typically get into the office before 10, which just fits with my routine and also means that I'm definitely not around any of the busy times of travel. And for my route, super chill every day. There's barely anyone on the trains. I can stay within good distance. Like that feels, I've not been concerned about that. I did get a bag.
Okay, for your travel back and forth? What bag did you get?
I got a bag called the Bellroy Tote Pack, which you listening Core Texans might remember as I brought this bag up once before, back when Mega Studio was new, and you really talked me out of getting a new backpack.
Yes.
But frankly, there isn't a situation right now where I can leave things here, right? There's things that I need to be at home and here because I can't leave things here safely.
Okay, that's right.
Because immediate lockdown can occur at any point. And I have been proven in that fact because I had to self-isolate last week. So last weekend, I didn't feel too well.
Okay.
Right? Like I was just feeling a little under the weather. So...
No reason to be paranoid. Could just be a cold.
Could just be a cold. But like you get any symptom now and you're like, well, I better check. So I got a COVID test.
How was the COVID test? I've heard they're terrible.
So I found it okay because people told me how bad it was.
Okay.
So this is different in different countries around the world, but in the UK, it's not very difficult to get tested. It's trickier right now, but like the mechanics of it aren't too bad. We just went online. I filled in a form. They mailed me a test. The tests are delivered by Amazon, which is like this weird dystopian but convenient thing.
That is really weird. That does very much feel like the movie where it's the corporate future. You know, everything is brought to you by Amazon, even your government COVID test.
Which is very by and large, right? Because in WALL-E, the president of by and large is the president, right?
Right.
So like, you know, it's very close to that, but honestly was convenient, right? Like it came on a Sunday,
that's how it
right?
happens.
And then so we took the test. I mean, so if you don't know, so the thing about the COVID testing is here in the UK, if you have a car, you can drive to a drive-through and someone will administer the test to you.
Oh yeah?
But if you don't have a car, the best way to do it is they send you the test, but that means you do the test to yourself. And the instructions are like, okay, you have to take the swab. You have to rub it on the tonsils, on your tonsils. Do not touch your tongue. Do not touch your cheek. And it's like, is that even possible?
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think I could do that.
I did it. I did do it. Both me and Adina did it, and we didn't touch our tongues. It takes a lot of practice, like looking in the mirror and opening your mouth and being like, how do I need to open my mouth in such a way that I can see a clear path to my tonsils without touching my tongue? And like, Adina was doing it by saying, that worked for her. And I could just do it by just being like very, like, just paying attention.
Right. It's like a game of operation is what you're playing.
And also, staying calm too, right? Like, you got to be calm because it makes you want to gag, right? But if you do that, your tongue moves. You stay really calm. Now, my brother had done one a few weeks ago, and he had like really hyped it up to me as like, this is terrible. So going into it, I thought it was going to be really terrible. And really, it just ended up being kind of uncomfortable. but it's fine. Because the other thing is you then take that same swab and you stick it up your nose, which is so weird.
Ugh.
And as the instructions say, you keep pushing until you feel resistance. So that thing goes up in there, Gray. It just goes up in there. You turn it around, take it out, stick it up the other one. It's like it's a very like brutal and like brutalist type thing to do to yourself. Like to administer this test to yourself in your own bathroom. It's very strange. But I'm happy that we have access to testing, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course you want access. Yes, granted, but
it's still super friggin' weird. But unfortunately, it took us a little longer. Like in previous weeks, it's been pretty quick. But we'd unfortunately hit. We took our test in a week where there was a bank holiday, so there was one less day of processing, and then also a week where for some reason there was just lots more people testing themselves, and it seemed like the testing centers were overrun. So we sent our tests off on Tuesday, which is so weird because you put it in the post box.
Right.
I know that they're in tubes and in bags, but like you see the boxes and you're like, oh no, right? Like I can imagine as a postal worker.
Right.
It's like, yeah, just like very strange, right? Like anyway, so then it goes off and you get a text and an email and they're like, you're negative. But we didn't get that until Saturday evening. So I was home from Saturday to Saturday. And let me tell you, I do not want to go into lockdown again because I have gotten used to having an office now.
Okay, so having tasted the freedom of Mega Office, the lockdown was much more brutal.
Much worse, yeah. Because I couldn't prepare properly, right? Because it just happened. So there was stuff in the studio that I would have liked to have at home and didn't. One thing that we did do was really, I think this was spurred on by what was happening in the Gray household. We really tidied out Mega Office. So by the end of our isolation, it did feel nicer to be working in there because I wasn't surrounded by mountains of boxes, right? As I described. So it did feel better. And now I feel like, okay, I actually do need to put some effort into Mega Office for the time being in case we have to go back, right? But I'm so happy to be back in the studio again. But this is also like, why am I a week behind on physical Podcast-a-thon prep? Because we lost a week at the studio.
Right. Of course. Right? That makes sense.
So we would have been a little bit further ahead with some of the setup. So I'm having to do a bit of catch up on that. But yeah, so that's my quarantine. I'm loving the studio, dreading lockdown.
And you tested negative. You failed.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Of course I tested negative. I'm back out in the world again. Although basically, like by the time I got my test back, I was only 2 days away from being allowed to go outside again anyway. Because the current isolation time is 10 days.
Right. So, I mean, I guess in theory, in this circumstance, you would have actually wanted to test positive and just stay home for 2 more days.
And then, if it's possible to benefit from antibodies, I would make the benefit, right?
Right.
But, the frustrating thing was I felt basically normal after 3 days, but then couldn't go anywhere.
Right. Because you don't know.
I'm a fool, right? I'm waiting on a test result. Like, if it turns out, you don't want to be that person, you shouldn't be that person. If I got a test pending, I got to wait for the answer of the test before I go back outside again.
Right.
It's foolish otherwise.
Yeah. Would you? Yeah. You don't want to be the start of a new little cluster.
Yeah.
What will be known as the Hurley cluster, right?
Yeah.
In London, there's a new cluster known as the Hurley cluster. This guy was commuting to work every day, even when he had a test pending. What an idiot.
So yeah, that's quarantine.
Boring life is the best life, Myke.
I mean, it is a life. You can get used to it. I feel like I'm used to it.
Yeah. Maybe a better word is placid. Like, what a placid, enjoyable stretch of time I've had. It was on my mind just because I started to mention this in the video, but I'm just feeling the beginnings of the cracks of social pressure coming back into my life. And, again, it's this difficulty of making decisions about what are and what are not acceptable risks. But I'm feeling more aware of this interregnum is coming to an end at some point. And that's why it struck me as curious of I wonder how long it has been since I've seen someone in person, not my wife. And oh yeah, it's just 6 months. And yeah, I don't know. like, I don't know when that first real break is going to happen, but it can feel a lot of the world like spinning back up, and invitations and social pressures kind of coming back in. And
but I mean, yes, they are occurring more, but I do feel like it's easier to say no than before. You can just say like, no, we're isolating.
Yes.
Right. And and I think most people do the okay, right? Like in the same way that like I have seen some friends, and we're taking all of the recommended precautions, but like it's pretty, it's like people's like, we're not like touching in any way, right? Like nothing, right? Like no hugs, no nothing. And it's like, I'm keeping that my family still, like I've seen some family, but like there is no physical contact, right? It's just like, and my personal result on that is everyone's like, okay, like no problem.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not getting messages that are like, get in the car, loser. We're going shopping, right? Like,
share this ice cream with me, Gray.
Yeah, exactly. There's none of that kind of stuff. But it's just, I'm aware of like an exponential increase in the number of like, oh, come to this thing, or like go over here, and it's like, no, please, no, I don't want to. No one has had even the slightest hint of a negative response,
right?
But it's still like, again, it's the difficulty of making these decisions and these risk calculations and trying to think about when are sensible points to reevaluate. And I think one of the other things that's just on my mind is I've been aware that in the beginning, my wife and I kept having like a really clear reevaluation schedule. So it was like, okay, maybe there's a global pandemic coming. We're going to go into lockdown for 2 weeks, and then we'll see what the deal is. And then it was like, oh God, this looks really bad. We'll check back in a month.
Oh, it's worse than worst case scenario. Oh no.
Yeah. Like at one point, I remember we will reevaluate on Independence Day. Like American Freedom Day will be the day that we leave our quarantine. Yep. And then that reevaluation day came, and it was like, nope, this is not happening yet.
I remember in March thinking, maybe I can go to the Atlanta Pen Show in April.
Right.
Also, like in April, thinking maybe I can be in Memphis for the Podcast-a-thon. Like, these were all things where it's like, surely it will be taken care of by then.
Yeah, exactly. But then at some point after Independence Day, and I don't know exactly when, we never really set a reevaluation point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I guess this is the thing now, and I think it is good to have dates to set as reevaluation points. Like I do think that was the only time in this whole period where my wife and I were like drifting a little bit. It's because we just hadn't set a like, when do we reevaluate it? But now my wife's been looking at like expert advice, and she's looking at, oh, okay, end of 2021 is like, maybe this is the reevaluation point. Who knows? But it's just like, just to have something in your mind.
I am maintaining, right, as I should be, like being very aware, being very vigilant, all that kind of stuff, right? Which is my preface to saying that I am finding myself thinking much more like looking around, seeing what's happening in the world, seeing the way that retail is opening and dining, and, just looking and thinking to myself, you know what? Like, this is it, right? Like, this is how we're going to be for some time. And there is a set of balances that as a society, if we're functioning properly, we can try and do. And as individuals, we can do. And I'm basically like, I'm not getting upset anymore. I'm not freaking out anymore. I'm kind of just like, all right. Like, I'm in it, we're in it, and we'll just keep going until we're not.
Yeah, no, don't get me,
I'm not saying you're not saying that, but it's like, it's a similar thing where like, I don't feel like I need, like you both did, like, I don't feel like I need this sense of like, well, maybe in a couple of months it will be taken care of, where I'm kind of just like, all right, like I'm in it now, and I'm just going to try and find life within these parameters and just get used to it. Because if I don't do that, I don't know how else I'm going to feel. Like, this is just where I am.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it makes sense, and it's also, again, it's just trying to figure out where to set the dial with these things. The only thing that I have found genuinely frustrating is just like the inability to travel, and that's part of what the big like reevaluation point is as well. Is like, okay, when is the next time that if something came up that's interesting for a project, I would feel comfortable getting on an airplane to, go investigate that project, right? That's a question. And then, and then the other question so that's like one big one. And that does feel like the 2021 reevaluation.
Yeah.
But then on a much smaller scale, there's just the question of like, I've never gone this long without some kind of graycation or without being on my own. And, it's a funny thing. It's like, oh, losing all the socializing, no problem. But not having a period of time where I'm just actually completely isolated.
Yeah.
It's like, boy, it's been a long time since that. And, my wife was looking at me the other day. She's usually the one who initiates this, where she's like, you look like you could need a graycation. And it's like, oh, okay, how do we evaluate that as a risk? I have no idea. Like, I just haven't even really thought it through. But those are the sorts of things where I'm just trying to think like, what are the trade-offs here? What is being too cautious? What is possibly being not cautious enough? Like, it's still extremely hard to judge. And it is in part of this feeling that like, I think the vast majority of the world is basically where you are, Myke, of like, yeah, this is the way things are, for some indefinite period of time. And people are like getting on with their lives. I think that's the way most of the world is. So yeah, it's just thinking about things in those contexts. But that's partly why I feel like there's some kind of cracks coming. And I don't know what the first thing to crack will be. Like, maybe my wife will find some totally isolated place to dump me for 2 weeks, for like a graycation. And that will represent the first kind of quarantine break. Like, I just don't know. I just don't know what the situation's going to be.
We have a couple of staycations coming up. We have a family event, and then we're doing something for Adina's birthday.
So what are you doing in terms of the physicalness of it?
What does that mean?
Like, is the family getting together? Are you going to some place and staying overnight?
We're going to a place for a few days. Like, we're all going to a place for a few days. If it goes well and it all works out and everyone has fun, like, I can imagine me and Adina doing more of that stuff throughout the rest of the year. Finding a hotel, just going just to change the scenery.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with that, I have been more in the outside world lately, like the physical outside space.
You have, okay.
I do have a question. I have a question, feedback question for the audience. Okay, so masks, right? Everybody's wearing them.
Mm-hmm.
I think my face is too big for a mask. Like,
yeah, okay.
I cannot find a mask that seems to fit. It's like the distance between the top of my nose and the bottom of my chin is too large.
All right, I was having this problem.
Okay.
I'm going to send you a link. You're not going to like it. I'm going to send you a link.
I feel like I'm not going to like it, Myke.
Adidas make masks.
Okay.
I mean, they have an Adidas logo on them. I don't know how you feel about that. That's what I think that you might not like. These are my favorites. These are my favorites. They're not... It's difficult to explain what they're made from, but they're kind of like... They feel like a little spongy in a way.
Okay.
Get a pack of these. They have the medium and large. Like they have small, medium, large, right? 2 sizes. Get the medium, large. It's £15 for a 3-pack. These are my favorites. They fit me the best. I was having this problem too of like that I could not find many options that would cover my nose to all the way under my chin. These do that. I really like them.
Yeah, or like I would find something that would cover until I would open my mouth at all, and then it would come and not work.
I mean, okay, if you can do, I've been able to do a bit of talking, but if I talk for a bit, it will slip off. But I think that you'll never find an option.
No, I'm going to find an option, and this is part of the reason why I'm asking the audience. It's like, hey, listen, there's got to be someone else out there whose face is too big, but who also wants like an N95 mask to protect them from all the things.
All right. Well,
right?
the N95
this must exist.
I can't help you with because these Adidas ones are just cloth coverings, right?
Yes. No, I can see that. I'll take them. I'll take them over nothing. Right. Like if something just fits.
I mean, it has a pocket for a filter, so you can go wild. Get those and see. But okay, you are asking for this feedback. How are you aiming to collect it? Where do you want people
the Reddit?
to send it
People
to?
go into the Reddit. That's the way to do it. There's no one home on Twitter. Just send stuff to the Reddit. Okay, that's the best way to find stuff.
Well, that's why I wanted to make it very clear because there's two things that I don't want to happen, which is I don't want to field tweets or get emails.
Right? Yeah. Don't send stuff to Myke. That'd be terrible.
It doesn't happen to me very often, but like if you ask something specific like this, I know I'm going to get caught up in it.
Yeah, that's my request.
Okay. I will happily benefit from this crowdsourcing because I'm always on the lookout for new masks. The Adidas ones are the ones that I have liked the most, but they are far from perfect.
Yeah, I hate the logo. It's ugly. I mean, look, what I really want is a Cortex brand mask. That's the thing that I actually want here.
Yeah,
but it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Look, this is not through a lack of trying on my part, right? But this is the thing that to get right seems to be pretty tricky. So
yes, but that's what I would like to bring into the world is the Cortex brand mask. But it doesn't exist. So in the meantime, help me out, Cortexans. Feedback in the Reddit.